Now, folks, we are going to do a sort of more general overview of the Joe Biden Medal of Freedom ceremony at the White House today, meaning, of course, yesterday. President Biden awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to 19 great leaders who have made America a better place. Jose Andres, Bono, Ashton, Baldwin Carter. Sorry, a small print. Hillary Rodham Clinton, obviously. Michael J. Fox, Jane Goodall, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ralph Lauren. There you could see some of the names on this list here. Denzel Washington, Anna Wintour, George Soros on the list, Robert Francis Kennedy, the senior RFK on the list. Interesting. Why don't we take a look at a montage, if you will, of award recipients featuring our signature stock music. Bill Nye. There's Anna Wintour. Denzel, of course. Michael J. Fox. Hey, hold still there. Hold still. Yeah, hold still. I know you got Parkinson's. So do I. I don't shake around like that. So here's Alex Soros, George Soros' son, accepting on his behalf. Magic Johnson, obviously. There's Mitt Romney accepting for George Romney, his father. So he was accepting it for his father, and then there's Bono.
Oh, I see.
All right, so as you can see there, folks, I mean, it's not very subtle. It's not very subtle. This was essentially a swan song to the old guard, to the beloved establishment figures in finance, politics, sports, the arts, right? This was like the in memoriam part of the Academy Awards, only everybody is still alive. For the most part, not everybody, but most of them are still alive, right? You have this old, increasingly irrelevant cultural, political, economic, social elite that is giving themselves one final pat on the back. And even the New York Times picked up on this. Biden awards 18 medals of freedom and delivers one unmistakable message with a recipient list stocked with old guard icons and political backers. The president signaled support for the establishment his successor wants to tear down. Yes, absolutely. That was unmistakable. So unmistakable, even the New York Times picked it up.
Even they didn't mistake it.
Even they didn't mistake it. Even they had the self-awareness to recognize what that was. You know, most years you would have the New York Times totally unaware that they're not in on the joke, right? But this time they even noticed this. With 16 days left in a political career that spanned half a century, President Biden on Saturday conferred one of the nation's highest honors on core members of the political, financial, and celebrity establishment of which he has long been a part. He hasn't really long been a part. He's always kind of resented that he wasn't a part of it and always wanted to be a part of it. That's what makes him such a prick. President-elect Donald J. Trump will replace Mr. Biden on January 20th. We'll see about that. Tomorrow's the 6th. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the libs have up their sleeves. Yeah. Don't count your chickens yet. Determined to continue his assault.
All right, Ms. Ventura, you're going to have to wait here in the closet for a couple weeks. But
Yeah, right,
I would have
exactly.
good authority. He's going to walk right past this spot.
Exactly. Determined to continue his assault on what he has long called the swamp. In 2016, Mr. Trump vowed to wage war against establishment members in both parties who he said had reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. But on Saturday, Mr. Biden awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to 18 people, including some of the brightest lights of the old guard that Mr. Trump wants to tear down. In doing so, the 82-year-old president is sending an unmistakable message of support for a democratic order he has said is threatened by Mr. Trump's reelection. Let's remember, Our sacred effort continues, and to keep going, as my mother would say, we have to keep the faith, he told the crowd in the East
My
Room.
my my mother's right here. I'd like to introduce you,
Yeah,
sir.
right, yeah, exactly. He
She
told
keeps
the
calling herself Jill. I don't know
Yeah, I don't know
why.
why no one's
Her
that's
name's
about.
not Jill. It's Lillian.
He told the crowd in the East Room of the White House at the end of the ceremony. All modern presidents have awarded the medal to those whom they found deserving, often as they are leaving the political scene for good, and sometimes with an ideological tilt. It is seen by historians as a final use of the presidential megaphone to say to Americans, this is whom we should admire and emulate. After Mr. Trump won in
You too can
2016,
crash the British pound.
yeah, right, exactly. After Mr. Trump won in 2016, President Barack Obama gave the medal to NBA star Michael Jordan, the actors Tom Hanks and Robert De Niro, and others. Earlier, Mr. Obama had given the award to Mr. Biden, who had served as his vice president. 4 years later, as Mr. Trump was leaving office, he gave the medal to two professional golfers, an Olympic athlete, and Representatives Devin Nunes of California and Jim Jordan of Ohio, two of his fiercest Republican loyalists in Congress. He should have given one to the what's his name, the My Pillow guy, the pillow
Why is
guy,
he talking about Arnold
Lindell.
Palmer's penis?
Yeah, exactly. Should have given one to Arnold Palmer, a posthumous Medal of Freedom to Arnold Palmer.
To his penis.
Yeah, I tell you, we could have hung a medal on that thing. But Mr. Biden's use of the presidential prerogative appeared to be more even pointed than that of some of his predecessors. Pardon me. His decision to give the medal posthumously to Mr. Kennedy could be read as a rebuke to Mr. Kennedy's son, a member of perhaps the country's most famous Democratic family. Well, that's fairly obvious, I think, that he chose to give it to RFK.
Yes.
What? How many years after he died? What? 50 years after after he was killed. The decision by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to endorse Mr. Trump during the campaign, despite denunciations from most of his relatives, helped lead to Mr. Trump's choice of him to head the Department of Health and Human Services. The White House noted that the elder Mr. Romney, a Republican, had been the chairman and president of American Motors Corporation and had later served as governor of Michigan and as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. But he was also the father of the younger Mr. Romney, the only Republican to vote twice to convict Mr. Trump after his two impeachments. So, yeah, between RFK and between George Romney and Bono, even, right? It's pretty obvious that aside from Hillary Clinton and George Soros, I mean, it's pretty obvious that this was a final celebration, almost a funeral procession, almost a funeral march. It was a swan song. It was one last hurrah for like I said, a cultural, social, financial, political elite that has just been completely destroyed, reputationally speaking, by Trump. Obviously, I don't believe Donald Trump has done much damage to the economic elite in this country, as we covered at the top of the show. You got just about every major corporation you can think of donating seven figures to his inauguration. But reputationally, culturally, socially, yeah, this was sort of the last dance and a last pat on the back for a certain cohort of elite society that has seen its influence wane over time and now has been completely stomped out by Trump for a second time, this time more convincingly than the first, obviously.
Yeah, that the tone deafness of it, but it's not only, yes, it's a funeral procession, it's a love letter to the neoliberal elite. It's also a big fuck you to any prospect of change within that party, any acknowledgement of failure, any acknowledgement that their generation not only destroyed their party, but had a lot to do with driving the country into the ground and laying the groundwork for Trump to
Right.
ascend to power a second time. Just absolute denial. I mean, it's just a list aside from the cultural figures like Denzel, which there's nothing unusual about that. They all do that. But
Right.
in terms of the political figures, the donors, it's just a parade of criminals and simps. The world's kitchen guy. Wow. Wow, man. These people backed the murder of your workers. They
Yeah.
backed the murder of your workers. How do you go up there and take that medal? The most base
Yeah.
thing this guy could have done would have been to show up and then throw the medal at him.
Right.
They'll
Exactly.
never do that because that especially if you have those kinds of politics, you're in that ecosystem. Those are the
Right.
people you know. Once you tell them to go fuck themselves, well, that's it. You're out of the club now.
Right.
Which again, hey, guy like this, how much money do you need? That's what I always say when I look at these people. We were talking about that with Van Jones, where he went up there with that grotesque display at the Israel March. How much money you need, man? Like you don't have enough. You don't have enough. But once you get to a certain level, you think in terms of that level. You think in
Right.
terms of maintaining that level. You don't think in terms of what you need anymore.
Yeah, you can't imagine extricating yourself from that social
Right.
circle. Even
Right.
though you would be like a beloved figure if you told them to go fuck themselves by so many people. I mean, one of the lessons
If
of
he
this
took that medal,
election.
threw it on the ground, spit on it, stepped on it, and walked out, he'd be a legend
Well, of
forever.
course, of course. I mean, one of the lessons of this election is that, legacy media, establishment institutions don't have the cultural cachet that they once did. And
Right.
so, whereas, 8, 10, 12 years ago, you might think, well, I can't snub the president when he asked me to the White House to give me this Medal of Freedom. That means I'm out of the club. Well, one thing that the results of this election kind of proved is that that club is not as big as it looks. That club
No.
only looks big because it still has a lot of money propping it up. But in terms of actual people, in terms of actual like popular will, popular support, it's not nearly as big as people think it is. In fact, it is really more a paper tiger now than it's ever been, which
Well,
means that you would be more beloved by the public if you're Jose Andres, if you decline that medal, than if you took it. Same goes for Denzel, by the way. Like, I understand he's not a particularly like political guy. Maybe he just doesn't think that way. But like, you're talking about one of the least popular presidents in modern history who backed a genocide. If there's ever a time to tell him to tell a president to shove their Medal of Freedom up their ass, it's now. Now, obviously, Hillary Clinton's not going to do that. Obviously, George Soros is not going
well,
to do that.
the
Obviously,
Hollywood
I
people
mean,
are the last people who are
Bono
going
is
to do
not going to
that.
do that. Right. But if you're the World Central Kitchen guy, I mean, there's nothing, there's no reason not to. And even if you're a Denzel type, there's no reason not to. If you're just a movie star who doesn't have any real politics, like I said, now he's not thinking
There
in
is,
those
there is. I
terms.
mean, if he's going to make like a Gaza statement, there is.
He's not thinking. I'm just talking in terms of like what the public will would be, like what people would think of it, right? More people would respect him
Oh,
for it
sure.
than not. Yeah,
Well, you want to
because even the MAGA
see,
people would respect it, but like a lot of people from
sure,
all different political stripes would think it was base if you
right.
turned him down.
Well, if you want to see where culture plays into politics, and you can see a lot of what's going on in the society through culture. The Whitney Cummings thing said it all about where we are. 5 years ago, if she had gotten that gig, less than that, 3 years, maybe even 2 years, you'd want to kiss CNN's ass, right?
Right,
You want to get invited back. You don't want to burn these people.
right,
Her whole strategy for advancing her career was take this opportunity to do a hit piece on CNN, to
right,
just take shots at CNN, so those will go viral, and I'll be able to command more money in my gigs, and I'll
right.
be more in demand. Like she just used CNN to go viral attacking CNN.
Exactly.
That tells you all you need to know about where their power is versus the power of social media platforms, because that's who she was marketing to. She was marketing to the social media platforms because that translates into money for gigs, film, TV appearances, because now you're hot for attacking this despised media network that nobody really watches anymore.
Exactly. Exactly.
Please clap.